program, NORML Show Live, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate for the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate or encourage any illegal activity and advise all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws by visiting NORML.org, NORML.org. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers of NORML Show Live are their own and do not necessarily reflect the philosophy and policies of NORML. Listener discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think we need to rethink and recriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws presents NORML Show Live, Marijuana Nation. Now, here's your host, NORML's Outreach Coordinator, Radical Russ Belville.
Good afternoon, tokers and tokettes, and welcome. It is Friday, June 17th, 2011, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. It's also an ignominious celebration here of the anniversary of Nixon declaring the war on drugs. That's right. Today is 40 years since Richard Nixon declared this war on drugs. And today we've got a very special edition of NORML Show Live to help you learn a little bit about the history behind those first few days in the war on drugs. At half past the hour, I'm going to be bringing you a special collection of audio clips from the Nixon White House tapes where he's discussing marijuana, and you'll get a really good idea why we're in the shape we're in today based on those tapes. But before we get to all that, we've got all sorts of other things to get to. First of all, welcoming back to the show, the engineer, Ganja John.
What's up, Russ?
Hey, John, I'm so glad you're back, and how's everything doing?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
You're
not going to die?
No, I'm not going to die.
Not soon?
Not soon.
Maybe 70 years from now?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably. Okay.
Yeah, something like that.
We're glad you're back, and also in our virtual studio in beautiful Grastoria is Cannabis Carrie. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, you guys. How's it going today?
Oh, we're doing really good. I hope things are as sunny up there in Astoria as they are down here in Portland.
They are gorgeous, and we've got a pretty crazy and full day and a crazy and full weekend here in Astoria, so I'm glad the weather is cooperating.
Absolutely. Well, Carrie brings us our headlines right after the first break, so what's in the news, Carrie?
Well, today I have an update on the New Jersey medical marijuana program. I know we gave you an update yesterday, but there's even more news out today. Also, Mayor Bloomberg, he responds to those arrests in New York City about marijuana possession. Also, the Florida governor is backtracking a little bit on his drug testing program. And the war on drug turns 40, and I want to mark that with our hemp headlines angle as well.
All right, we'll get to that right after our first break. And then after that break, at 20 after, we're going to be visiting with Herb Thrasher from Herb Age Designs. He's made a metal, and he's bringing us a great tune here today from a band called Dirty Rig. But I'm going to save the name of the song because he wants to say it. So Dirty Rig is the band today for our Rockin' Friday. And then, like I said, half past the hour, we're going to go all the way into the war on drugs, the history of it, and the early Nixon White House tapes that show his prejudice against marijuana users, and how it led to the war on drugs that we have today. These clips will also be available with transcripts at our blog at stash.normal.org. So if you'd like to read along with the recital that we have here at half past, just look up on the blog, stash.normal.org. We're back right after this.
In today's busy world, we're inundated by advertising for all types of pharmaceuticals that come with a laundry list of potential side effects. Shouldn't you have better medical choices? Natural alternatives to pills pushed by Big Pharma? At Alternative Medical Choices, you could choose natural, safe, and effective alternative therapies that are right for your budget without nasty side effects. Cannabis, or marijuana, has been a legal medicine in the Pacific Northwest since 1998. Our doctors will help determine your qualifications for a medical marijuana recommendation in Oregon, no matter where you live. Our massage therapists will ease your aches and stress with soothing hemp seed oil or cannabis-infused massage salves. We also offer acupuncture, Reiki, and other alternative health therapies. Call Alternative Medical Choices in Portland, Oregon at 503-288-5579 or visit our website at www.altmedchoices.com. We specialize in out-of-state recommendations. That's www.altmedchoices.com or call 503-288-5579.
NORML Show Live is actually live every weekday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Right now, you're grooving to our daily Toker tunes.
The world's greatest cannabis competition is coming back to the Bay Area. Over 100 strains of medical marijuana will go head-to-head to see who's the dankest in California. Indicas, sativas, hybrids, concentrates, edibles, plus THC, CBD, and CBN testing. The High Times Medical Cannabis Cup, June 25th and 26th at the Concourse Exhibition Center in San Francisco. It's gonna be awesome. Get your tickets at medcancup.com.
Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, consumer cannabis. It's time for this week's NORML News with Cannabis Carrie.
A lawsuit in Florida may have derailed Florida Governor Rick Scott's plan to drug test all state workers. Governor Scott, a Tea Party favorite, has been adamant that all state employees would be drug tested every 3 months. He also demanded that welfare recipients in his state also be drug tested before they could receive benefits. Scott signed the executive order in March to begin the state worker testing program. Governor Rick Scott is the founder and up until recently the owner of Solantic, the largest drug testing company in the state, a fact that had many wondering if his drive to require the state to spend millions on drug tests was a business move or a political one. Last month, the ACLU sued Scott in a federal court, charging that mandating drug tests for workers who were not suspected of any wrongdoing violated their constitutional protections against unreasonable searches and seizure and took from them their right to due process. He signed that order to require all 168,000 state workers be tested 4 times a year, and the state is still trying to work out the details of the new program, which will cost millions. Due to the pending lawsuit that challenges the program, however, he quietly signed a suspension of the controversial new rule back on June 10th. No one had paid much attention to the suspension of the program until the ACLU obtained and circulated copies of it yesterday. Randall Marshall, the legal director for the Florida ACLU, released a statement with the suspension order that said he is pleased that the new order has been delayed to subject thousands of state employees to demeaning, invasive, and illegal tests of their bodily fluids. But he said the suspension does not change their constitutional challenge. He called any government search without suspicion of drug use or not directly related to public safety a violation of privacy protections, and said the ACLU will vigorously move ahead with their challenge to the program. Now, the courts in other states have generally upheld random drug testing for workers if they are involved in public safety. Scott's suspension order allows for the continued drug testing of police officers, which have already been tested on their 21,000 employees. Governor Scott, in a memo made public today, said that he is confident that the courts will uphold the testing program and that his program would, quote, ensure a safe, effective, productive, and fiscally accountable workforce, adding, nonetheless, while the case is pending, it does not make sense for all agencies to move forward with the logistical issues involved in instituting my new policy.
You know, the thing I always have to come back to on these situations where these people want to do drug testing in, schools or for welfare recipients, state workers, whatever it might be, is it always seems to be a solution in search of a problem. Do we have a problem with state government workers in Florida coming to work high all the time? Are we seeing productivity issues because mass drug abuse of state workers? Do state workers have rates of drug abuse greater than the general population? I don't think so. And so every time one of these things comes around, I ask, what are you trying to solve? Well, what they're trying to solve here is to have the heavy hand of the state tell us what we can do on our off time. Tell us what we can do with our bodies. Tell us what we can do with our minds. That's what they're really trying to solve here. He just wants to have total control. State workers, welfare recipients. Let's have the government have total control over people's thoughts, over what they consume, over the medicines they use. And Thomas Jefferson said it best. If we ever allow the government to dictate what foods we eat or medicines we take, our souls will be in as bad a shape as those who are oppressed by tyranny. This is tyranny over people. There's no reason to believe that someone, just because they work for the state, means that they are taking drugs of any kind. And this, again, I hope the ACLU wins this suit. They've won them before. It's ridiculous for us to have this situation.
We gave you an update yesterday on the medical marijuana program in New Jersey, telling you that there are now 90 doctors registered with the program and 0 patients. Well, today we have even more news from the No Garden state. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie said he will not implement the state's medical marijuana law until the federal government assures him that they will not prosecute anyone who is on or working for the program. Christie made the remarks yesterday on an appearance of the On the Line Collins show and said that until he receives assurance from the feds, he cannot ask people to do things that they might get prosecuted for. Christie says that his office has sent 2 letters to U.S. Attorney Paul Fishman asking for clarification, and he has yet to receive a response. He asked the radio host, quote, "What happens if they get arrested and I ordered them to do it? That's just wrong." Taking a page from Washington State's Governor Gregoire and Arizona State's Governor Jan Brewer, Christie said that he will not activate the program without a clear response from the Federal Justice Department because he does not want state employees implementing the program to get in trouble. State Attorney General Paula Dow sent a letter in April to U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder asking him to provide clear guidance to the enforcement position of the Department of Justice relative to New Jersey's medical marijuana legislation, along with the scope of the entities and individuals that may be subject to civil or criminal prosecution. There has been no response so far to their request. Christie says that if he were the governor when the medical marijuana law was passed, that he would not have signed it. The law was signed by the former governor, John Corzine, on his last day in office. Christie has been accused of trying to hold up the implementation of the medical marijuana law, set out tough and restrictive rules to govern the program. The administration has already selected businesses that have spent considerable time and money to be dispensary outlets for medical cannabis. Asking for a clear and written blessing from the feds is a completely new stipulation by the governor that puts the entire program in jeopardy. Even though the New Jersey medical marijuana law was passed over a year ago, just a reminder, the program has 0 patients registered.
Yeah, it's something telling when the governor comes right out and says, well, you know, if this law had come before me, I would have vetoed it. Well, I'm sure we can trust you to implement the one that was signed before then, can't we? Right? It's obvious that Chris Christie just doesn't want medical marijuana, period. He's going to do everything in his power to try to stop it. It's incumbent on the people to force his hand, embarrass this man, bring out, you know, patients in wheelchairs that are suffering and show the people of New Jersey and the people of the United States that Chris Christie would rather have those people suffer than implement the will of the previous governor, the will of the legislature, the will of the people in this case. I encourage you all to get involved with the Coalition for Medical Marijuana New Jersey. They're at cmmnj.org, or get involved with New Jersey NORML or NORML New Jersey at normalnj.org.
New York City has been the arrest capital of the world for marijuana crimes, even though they have had a decriminalization law in their books longer than any other major city. Many social justice activists have been demanding that the city change their policy that has accounted for more than 350,000 people arrested for small amounts of marijuana since 2002. Much of the pressure has been on Mayor Bloomberg's administration to change their policy that allows police to ask suspects to empty their pockets, then arresting them for having cannabis in plain view. Statistics have proven that the policy has sent minorities to jail in overwhelmingly disproportionate numbers. And now the mayor is defending the policy, saying that arresting those 350,000 people for small amounts of marijuana have helped the police drive down more serious crime. He also called the consequences for the people who have been locked up for short amounts of time minimal. Almost 90% of those arrested for personal amounts of marijuana are Black or Latino, even though marijuana use is rampant by young whites in the city. In the face of growing protest and criticism of the policy, including from members of the city council, the state legislature, and even aides to the mayor, he emphasized that few of those arrested on marijuana charges actually end up with criminal convictions, since many of the cases are dismissed or sealed after 1 year. He says that the process itself, which typically lasts between 4 and 24 hours of being locked in a squalid holding cell while the paperwork is processed and a judge can see you, is the extent of the punishment for the crime. That just doesn't sit well with activists and many lawyers who say that people are regularly losing their jobs for missed work as they wait to see a judge, or because their employers do not want anyone connected with even minor drug offenses to be working for them. Every 10 minutes in New York City, someone is arrested for possessing a small amount, less than 25 grams of marijuana. Stephen Banks, the attorney-in-chief for the Legal Aid Society, represented 30,000 people involved with minor marijuana cases in the city just last year. He says that the policy is clogging the court system and ruining people's lives in terms of collateral consequences when it comes to employment, housing, and immigration. Immigrants are deported deported if they are convicted twice on a marijuana charge. Many of those that needed help from legal aid after a marijuana arrest were home health care attendants or security guards, and an arrest puts their licenses at risk. Most of the marijuana arrests in the city result in a form of probation known as adjournment in contemplation of dismissal, meaning that the records will be sealed if the defendant stays out of trouble for 1 year. Frank Berry, an aide to Mayor Bloomberg, said that the city was focusing on quality of life issues in high crime areas and had, quote, saved thousands of lives, and the gains have been the biggest in African American and Latino communities, unquote. He added that drug testing of people arrested for other crimes in New York often come up positive for marijuana, saying that the data shows an inextricable link between drugs and crime. Jim Dwyer of the New York Times asked in a column today if they conducted the same tests not just in jails but in the nicer neighborhoods in the city, that he might find an inextricable link between pot smoking and banking or academia.
Exactly. These are bunk statistics, of course, Mayor Bloomberg, and shame on you because you are a pot smoker. You're someone who's admitted to pot smoking. Famous NORML ad when he was running for mayor. Yes, I smoked pot and I enjoyed it. You know, I really wish we could take Mayor Bloomberg and maybe, you know, just for one day, transport his body, Star Trek style, transport his mind into the body of a young African-American kid in Harlem and give him a joint and have him smoke it and see what happens. See how he likes these minimal consequences. I'll tell you what, he wouldn't have become mayor. That's for damn sure.
And today marks the 40th birthday of the United States war on drugs. 40 years ago, President Richard Nixon made the declaration that we are waging a war on drugs as part of the Comprehensive Drug Abuse Prevention and Control Act of 1970. In early 1971, a report on the growing heroin epidemic among servicemen returning from Vietnam revealed that 10 to 15% of the enlisted men coming home from the war were addicted to heroin. Nixon coined the war on drugs in response to combating drug use among servicemen. Now, in the last 40 years since Nixon's declaration, we've spent more than $1 trillion arresting millions of nonviolent drug users. We've built thousands of jails to house the new criminals, and all while not reducing drug use or the availability of illegal drugs. Countless family members have been incarcerated and even killed in the commission of fighting this war. World leaders from around the world now are seeing the damage our militant policies are having on communities scarred by drug violence. In marking the anniversary of the bloody war, I want to highlight a movement that is happening in one of the bloodiest battlefields in the front lines of this American policy. This weekend, a caravan of Mexican anti-violence protesters arrived in the United States without much press and certainly without much support here. Mexican poet Xavier Scalia has been leading the peace caravan through Mexico after his 24-year-old son was brutally murdered by drug traffickers in March of this year. He is demanding an end to the Merida Initiative, where the United States provides training and support for the Mexican army to battle drug trafficking. The peace caravan is calling for an end to the drug war, saying that the war on narco traffickers had led to the rise of organized crime and powerful drug lords in his country. He says that the guns that arm the violent traffickers have come directly from the U.S. and that the drug war is specifically to combat drug use only in the U.S. Before the current Mexican president Felipe Calderon launched his own war on drugs at the urging of U.S. officials, there were an average of 2,000 drug-related homicides each year. But since 2006, when he declared his own country's war against drugs, that number has reached 15,000 deaths a year, and it has been climbing steadily. The correlation is obvious to everyone but U.S. officials. Now, I want to play a small piece of an interview that happened this week between Laura Carlson, who traveled with this peace caravan for the Mexican City-based America's Policy Program of the Center for International Policy, to highlight the changing movement of Mexican citizens who are fighting for the end of the war on drugs. Now, she is speaking to Amy Goodman of Democracy Now!
Well, the idea for the caravan was that it would go through the most heavily affected areas in Mexico, which is exactly what it did. So it began on June 4th from Cuernavaca, where Javier Cecilia's son was murdered and tortured. It went through Mexico City, it went to Morelia, it went to Durango, Torreon, Monterrey on the border, and ended up in Ciudad Juarez. At each stop along the way, we heard testimonies mostly from victims. It was something that was incredibly effective and had a huge impact emotionally on the hundreds of people who were traveling in the buses throughout the caravan, because people literally stood up and cried before a microphone, not only saying that their relatives had been murdered, tortured, but also that they'd been disappeared and then adding that their experiences with authorities had been completely frustrating, that there was no response from police for investigations, that there was no response from the judicial system to find out who was responsible for this, that in many cases the victims themselves were being blamed as being somehow linked to organized crime in order to justify the fact that they've been killed. And this is something that's been common. President Calderon has said 90% of the victims are linked to organized crime. There's no factual basis for this, and it just ends up being an insult added to the injury of the victims. These are the testimonies that were gathered along the caravan to arrive in Ciudad Juarez, where there were working groups to construct a citizens' pact for peace with justice and dignity.
It's 20 after the hour, and we have to take a short break, if you know what I mean. Please support these sponsors who support NORML Show Live.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would send you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
76% of Americans no longer support arresting and jailing marijuana smokers, and nearly as many support the medical patients having access to medical marijuana. And over 80% of our citizens now believe the war on drugs is an ineffective failure. So the question is, when will the government's misguided war on adult marijuana smokers finally end? When? Simple. When you and your like-minded friends, family, and coworkers get involved with an organization such as the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, also known as NORML. My name is Keith Stropp, and I founded the organization in 1970. Contact us at NORML, toll-free, 888-67-NORML, or by visiting the organization's up-to-date webpage at www.norml.org.
Hey, is it 420 yet? This is Rick Cusick from High Times Magazine, and you're tuned into NORML's Audio Stash.
Californians support legalizing and taxing marijuana use.
I think it's time for debate.
NORML Show Live.
And I think that we ought to study very carefully on what other countries are doing that have legalized marijuana and other drugs.
Marijuana Nation.
I saw him hanging there afterwards, a celebration party after the Mr. Olympia, smoking a joint. Did he really smoke a joint? And did he in fact inhale?
Saying I'm in need of a change. I'm in need of a change. See, I used to get high.
John said that you and him used to smoke weed together.
He was right.
He was right?
We always had a good time. We know how to enjoy ourselves.
Nothing to lose. Now I can't get high. Can't get high.
Come on, Cohagen. You got what you want. Give these people air.
Days come to pass and the nights tend to last much longer than they should.
I'll be back.
See, I used to get high. At the end of the day, I used to get high. That time ticking away, and I used to get high. Nothing to lose, now I can't get high.
76%
can't get
of
high.
Americans no longer support arresting and jailing marijuana smokers, and nearly as many support the medical patients having access to medical marijuana. And over 80% of our citizens now believe the war on drugs is an ineffective failure. So the question is, when will the government's misguided war on adult marijuana smokers finally end? When? Simple. When you and your like-minded friends, family, and coworkers get involved with an organization such as the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, also known as NORML. My name is Keith Stropp, and I founded the organization in 1970. Contact us at NORML, toll-free, 888-67-NORML, or by visiting the organization's up-to-date webpage at www.norml.org.
It's time for your Daily Toker Tunes, the best in 420 friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Today, we take you into the weekend with Rockin' Friday. Our segment features the best of rock, metal, punk, and jam band music. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on NORML Show Live, send it to us at stash@normal.org. Now here's some more great independent marijuana music for today's Daily Toker Tune.
All right, folks, it's Friday, and that means it's time to rock, and we visit with Herb Thrasher from Herb Age Designs. How's it going, Herb?
All right, man. Another beautiful day in Portland, Oregon, man. The sun is shining. It's starting to feel like summer now, isn't it?
I know. I'm loving it. And, last week, we hung out on Friday night and played a whole bunch of good metal tunes and had some fun with rock. You want to come over tonight? We'll do the same thing?
I think we should do that, man, after we go pay our respects to a lot of our fallen soldiers.
Yeah, exactly. There's a candlelight vigil going on tonight and all over the country here. It's a candlelight vigil acknowledging the 40th anniversary of the war on drugs, and it'll be at Pioneer Courthouse Square tonight. Do you know what the time is on that? Is it 9 tonight?
I'm pretty sure it's at 9 o'clock, so I plan on kind of getting there around 8:30. I think we should start gathering, by 8:39 and just kind of take it from there. I don't know what the organizers have planned, but I'm sure it's going to be a cool thing for us to go out and support.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's get in the mood here to bust heads and rock out. I know we got some great music coming up here on Rockin' Friday.
Right on. We always try to rock on Fridays, and this one's no different. So today we have Dirty Rig. These guys was an awesome American rock and roll band from Long Island, New York, that played it a little dirty. So you know how when you have your bong and it has clean water in it, and then you take a few hits, and then the water kind of turns a little brown and dirty? That's Dirty Rig right there. Well, you think clean rock and roll, and then when you add a little bit of distortion and a scream, it makes it a little bit dirty.
It's clean rock and roll with a little bit of bong water.
There you go, man. I love that, dude. I think they're going to love that, too.
I think so, too.
So Dirty Rig is not a band these days, as frontman and singer Corey Clark fronts the famous doom metal band Now Trouble. And Trouble is definitely a great band. I recommend everyone out there, if you've never heard Trouble, to look them up. One of these days, hopefully, I can get them on here, but you never know. But that is a solid band right there. Anyway, Dirty Rig was formed in 2003 with Chad, Steve, Croc, and Ed. The EP was followed by a full-length album. Rock did it in June 2006. After release of the album, Dirty Rig toured UK in September and later that year. And you guys can find them on MySpace/Dirty Rig. And I thought they had a website, but it shows they do, but I don't think they do. So, I don't know. Now, MySpace would be the way to go if you want to hear these guys. But on that note, also, I'd like to end with, we have 40 years today of this drug war thing. And it's so aggravating to every one of us who have totally had to deal with this. We put so much time, energy. There's people in prison. We know the story. We hear it all the time. And it's just ridiculous that here we are in 2011 still having to put up with this crap. And that was one of the reasons why I thought today's title, Suck It, was a good title and a good song to play for our group. And so to all my friends out there that have a big old joint, a vaporizer, or a bong, I like the way you get it on. Go on and suck it. And to all my friends out there who think...
Suck it. Yeah, rock it. Living life like superstars, like kills the presence in the dark. Dream on the little baby's heaven for the naked stock. I make no rules, honey, it's cool. I know you're new to rock. You like to dance. Open your prayers. I I missed the mark. Now I know you had another chicken bed when I was out of town. Now I'm doing you, and you're coming too. I like the way you get it on, come on. Come on, suck it. Come on, rock it. Come on, suck it. Come on, rock it. Fire away, yeah. Sexy as shit, yeah. I'm fit for the rock and roll thing. You know what I like, yeah. Like when I see, yeah. Roll out of here like kings and queens. Come on, love making through the night until the dawn's gone. Kiss the heart. Shake off the morning drink and soon I must depart. Until we meet again, I lay you with this thought. Rock. Come on, suck it! Come on, rock it! We are playing it, nothing to shame it. Leave a perspective for those who bleed. I love you, baby, for you I came. I'm blessed with the vibe, with nothing but pain. Come on! Yeah! Yeah! Yeah!
You want a copy of that song for your iPod? Check out the Daily Toker Tunes at the Stash blog by surfing to stash.normal.org and choosing Media, and then Toker Tunes from the main menu.
Starfish Designs, makers of the original Gandalf.
I'm Radical Russ, and when I want to relax, I always have my 17-inch long original Gandalf from Starfish Designs nearby. The hand-blown borosilicate glass is strong and easy to clean, and the design is sleek and sophisticated. Starfish Designs are available from Bend, Oregon at a glass retailer near you. For locations, call 541-788-GLASS. That's 541-788-4527. This is Radical Russ reminding you to support your local gardener and buy American. You know, just generally speaking, and not in reference to anything that could be construed as an act of illegal commerce, of course.
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, say no more.
Legalize it. Don't criticize.
This is Peter Tosh for NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Did you know that more than 400,000 Americans were arrested last year for the possession of marijuana? People are being sentenced to up to 40 years for even standing beside a joint. Well, I think it is definitely time for you to help doing something towards this. To find out what you can do, just write NORML, NORML,
1600 K Street Northwest, Washington, D.C. 2006. That's 1600 K Street Northwest, Washington, D.C. 20006.
Help NORML to help protect your rights.
Let's get out of here. I have some really good weed back at the hotel.
War on certain American citizens using non-pharmaceutical, non-alcoholic, tobacco-free drugs.
All right, folks, welcome. We've got a special segment we're doing today in, I guess, commemoration, observation, whatever you want to phrase it as, of the 40th anniversary of Richard Nixon's war on certain American citizens using non-pharmaceutical, non-alcoholic, tobacco-free drugs. Specifically, a war on marijuana. So we're going to play a whole bunch of clips for you here. Pull that sound down, and I'll give you this. Going to the card here. Of course, the Nixon's war on drugs began on June 17th, 1971, as he addressed the public and told them that drugs were public enemy number one. And this led then to him appointing a commission, the Schaefer Commission. Governor Raymond P. Schaefer, former governor of Pennsylvania, a conservative, was appointed to head that commission. And as we look back at that time, we're going to go back in the Nixon White House tapes here and give you kind of an idea of what was going on in America that time in the White House and his advisors, and how they framed their ideas with respect to drugs and marijuana. So we start on May 13th, 1971. This is in the Oval Office between President Nixon, his associate Haldeman, Bob Haldeman, and John Ehrlichman. And he's talking about, they were actually talking about an episode of All in the Family. Remember the old Archie Bunker All in the Family show? And they'd gone on talking about hippies and homosexuals and all that. And then it got onto the subject of dope. And this is how Richard Nixon thought that strong societies would deal with drugs.
Let's look at the strong society, the Russians. God damn, they do it around. They don't let them around at all. You know what I mean? I don't know what to do with them. Now, we are allowing this in this country when we destroy the country. Dope. Do you think the Russians allow dope? Hell no, not if they can allow it. Not if they can get catch it. They send them up. You see, homosexuality, dope, immorality generally, these are the enemies of strong societies. That's why the communists and the left-wingers are pushing each other. They're trying to destroy us.
They're trying to destroy us. It's just funny. He mentions the Russians, and now we have a drug czar. I've always thought that was quite telling. And weird that here in America that we would be trying to emulate what Russia does, what communist societies, what at the time was considered one of the most repressive societies in the world, that we would want to emulate that. But that was Richard Nixon's idea. Now, later on in the conversation, Bob Haldeman left, and then George Shultz entered with Chicago Mayor Richard Daley. And then the following is from that segment. The president and Mayor Daley are talking about how Chicago approaches drugs. And if you've ever heard of the gateway theory, this may have been where it originated.
And even in the high school, let me tell you one thing that just happened here. It probably was not clear in the press here. I had a press conference in California, which was not televised, but I was asked about marijuana because a study is being made by that they look at the government. Now, my position is just have this flat out. I'm against legalizing marijuana. Now, I'm against legalizing marijuana because I know all the arguments about whether marijuana is no worse than whiskey or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the point is, once you cross that line from the straight society to the drug society, marijuana, then it's speed, then it's LSD, then it's heroin, et cetera, you're done. But the main point is, while we can talk about this commission, we'll come up with other recommendations, perhaps with regard to having the penalties more realistic to some places that they were too far in respect. As far as the legalizing of it is concerned, I think we've got to take a strong stand, one way or the other, in this mind. Because I mean, that's still against legalizing. That's at least the position that I take. Because I think if we legalize it, I think then your high school and elementary school get, well, why not? It's like your other.
There's the what about the children to tag that one. The high school kid, the elementary kid, why not? And, once you cross from straight society to drug society, marijuana, then speed, then it's LSD, then it's heroin, then you're done. This is what Nixon and his advisors were talking about before he issued his proclamation declaring the war on drugs. Now, we move forward just a week here in the timeline, May 18th, 1971. So a month before he came out and issued the war on drugs proclamation. In the Oval Office, he had a conversation with Art Linkletter and Devan Shumway, and Ollie Atkins was present at the beginning. Now, Art Linkletter, for those of you who don't know, he was a television personality back, going back to the day, 50s, 60s, 70s. He was, the living room guy. I mean, he was your who would he be compared to today? Tom Bergeron, maybe? I mean, I don't know who else you'd compare him to in modern society.
Like a TV presenter.
TV personality, interviewer. He had a show called Kids Say the Darndest Things. He was beloved by families and all of that. So here's Nixon conversing with Art Linkletter and talking about, again, the gateway theory and how it could destroy the nation.
And then, of course, I bear down mostly on marijuana because that's the puberty right of the day.
That's Linkletter there.
I really give them a lecture on marijuana. And you see, the big problem with marijuana is you should know this 2 weeks ago in California. What did you say about it? Well, we're having a commission on before the commission or whatever it says. I'm against legalizing. Absolutely. I said, no, as far as penalties are concerned, that's something else. They should, of course, be uniform. But I'm against legalizing, period. But I think you've got to draw the line on the damn thing, because that's right. Then they say, well, it's the same as booze. Well, maybe booze is bad. But the point is that you can, maybe booze can lead to marijuana, can lead to speed, or LSD, can lead to heroin, and so forth. But basically, I mean, I know another way to look at it is this, if I may say so, with regard to, if you get to a little more sophisticated audience who really care about destiny, a few of the other things, history has ever been destroyed by alcohol. An awful lot of nations have been destroyed by drugs.
No nation in all of history has ever been destroyed by alcohol, but awful lot of nations have been destroyed by drugs. And also in this quote, we get him talking about whatever the report says, I'm against legalization. Now, you got to understand the Schaefer Commission had already been impaneled. They were already interviewing people on the situation with marijuana and other drugs in America. And here he is saying, we're going to have the commission report, and I can be very clear, whatever it says, I'm against legalizing. So if he put all these scientists together and they had come out and said they would legalize, he would have ignored it anyway. Now, as the Art Linkletter conversation goes on, there's a very, very telling part here where Art Linkletter tries to describe the difference between alcohol and marijuana.
There's a great difference between alcohol and marijuana. What is it? The worst that you can have when you're in with other alcoholics is more to drink, so you'll throw up more and get sicker and be drunker. And that also is a great, great restraint. But when you are with druggers, you can go from marijuana, I say heroin. If you're with a guy who suggests you have 3 more drinks than you should have, you're just going to get sicker. But if you're with a guy who you're already high, he suggests you try this instead of this, you can go much further.
If you're with a guy who drinks, you'll just get drunker, but you're with a guy who's already high and gives you something else, then you can go much further. And the other thing that's telling about this quote to me is when we have Linkletter talking about the worst thing about alcoholics is you throw up more and get sicker and be drunker. And Nixon replies with, and that also is a great incentive, and I think he was trying to say a great incentive not to get too drunk, which goes to my theory that I've always said the problem that a lot of people have with marijuana is that there isn't a hangover. There isn't a severe punishment for using it. Now, as this conversation goes on, we have Art Linkletter bringing up a Dr. Harvey House, one of the doctors who brought up a paper on marijuana and described how us pot smokers just can't think straight.
There's a man named Dr. Harvey House. Dr. House is the chief clinical psychiatrist at the University of California in Berkeley. 5 years ago, they asked him for the paper what he thought of marijuana. He said, it's a light hallucinogen, probably doesn't cause any harm to anybody. This was played up, and he was worried because it was so played up. He spent 5 years studying it. About 2 months ago, he released his newest story, and it can all be put in 5 words. Pot smokers can't think straight. Pot smokers can't think straight. If you are a regular head and use it regularly, you are not using your priorities correctly. You are not judging what is most important. You have a kind of a will-less way of thinking. And he described in his study as guys walking along a meadow that had the same appearance, but some parts were boggy and quicksandy and some were firm. And that's the kind of thinking that pot smokers have. And when people like that say these things, you can't tell me that this guy Brown from your NIMH, he was quoted this morning as saying that marijuana is really nothing, and perhaps it should be given the same penalty as
Mm-hmm. And as the conversation rolls to a close, they continue to discuss the difference between marijuana and alcohol. And of course, the difference is that we're just smoking pot to get high.
Well, you know, I suppose they could say that alcoholics don't think straight too, can't they? Yes, in a sense. Surely. But another big difference between marijuana and alcohol is that when people smoke marijuana, they smoke it to get high. In every case, when most people drink, they drink to be sociable. You don't see people. That's right. That's right. See, they sit down with a marijuana cigarette to get high. A person does not drink to get drunk. That's right. A person drinks to have fun. That's they smoke marijuana. You smoke marijuana. You want to get a charge. Right now, I'm sorry. You want to get a charge, float, this and that and the other thing.
So when you don't drink, John, to get drunk. People don't drink to get drunk.
That made me laugh.
A person does not drink to get drunk. A person drinks to have fun. But you smoke marijuana when you want to get a charge and float and this and that and the other thing. So these are the people that are deciding to declare war on us, having their conversations here while the Schaefer Commission is still engaged in researching the subject. Now, a few days later, May 26, 1971, Nixon is in the Oval Office talking with H.R. Bob Haldeman again. And this, of course, is one of the big famous quotes from Nixon on the war on drugs. He's referring to the Schaefer Commission that's currently studying the problem of dangerous drugs in America. And Nixon's talking about what sort of result he wants to see from this commission.
Now, this is what I want to buy that strong statement of marijuana. Can I get that out of this son of a bitch domestic council? Sure. I mean, one on marijuana that just tears the ass off of them. I see another thing in the news summary this morning, but that's a funny thing. Every one of the bastards that are out for legalizing marijuana is Jewish. What the Christ is the matter with the Jews, Bob? What is the matter with them? I suppose because most of them are psychiatrists. You know, there's many, all the great psychiatrists are Jewish. By God, we are going to get the marijuana thing. And I want to get it right and square in the puss. I want to find a way to put more on that, more on somebody else who do that. Yep. I want to get it legalized and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. What the Christ is the matter with the Jews, Bob? What is the matter with them? I want a statement that tears the ass out of them, said President Nixon, before they had even come forth with their report. He already knew what sort of result he wanted to get out of that. Now, as we continue on, June 17th, 1971, that's the date we are recognizing today. 40 years ago today, Richard Nixon holds his press conference where he declares us public enemy number one.
We must wage what I have called total war against public enemy number one in the United States, the problem of dangerous drugs.
Yeah, so we are now public enemy number one as of 40 years ago today. Now, after the war had been declared and time had moved on, we move now to the fall of 1971, September 9th, 1971, in a conversation between Raymond Schaefer, who is the head of that commission, the Schaefer Commission, Jerome Jaffe. Now, Jaffe is one of the people that was studying this who was coming out and saying, you know, positive things. Well, not positive, but that marijuana wasn't so bad. And, you know, that was the one that they were criticizing earlier in these conversations. So Jerome Jaffe is there, and Bud Crow Jr. is there as well. And Nixon is asking Schaefer about the commission's report that has yet to be issued, but wants to know how is it going.
When will the marijuana come out? The marijuana will come out in March 72. In other words, we are coming into the final phases of it now. We've had all of our public hearings. We have 9 more informal hearings. All your public hearings? All of the public hearings, yes. And we have had several informal hearings. We have 9 more of those, including one at the Federal College Monday here right here in Washington. This is actually a very interesting hearing. It's not part of anybody who's on the same thing. But, you know, this is like over 75% of the rest are white, and under 18, almost 85%, which I think is very strong.
I know it's hard to hear at the end of that part of the tape with all the chair creaking and all. Raymond Schaefer says over 75% of the users are white, referring to marijuana, are white, and under 18, almost 85%. And that's when Richard Nixon replies, "It's now becoming a white problem." oh dear, now we better do something about it if it's a white problem. You know, it's just black folks who are smoking it. No big deal, but it's a white problem. We better do something. All right, so they continue the conversation with Raymond Schaefer, and Richard Nixon brings up something that I didn't know was happening in 1971. It sounds like something more from California in the late 90s about cigarette smoking, and he points out how weird it would be if people were to accept marijuana and want to make cigarettes illegal.
Where there is a certain fetish group in the country that, on the one hand, want to make smoking illegal, cigarette smoking illegal, and marijuana legal. But now, we see it all the time. I mean, now that doesn't make any damn sense. Probably if we really want to...
That doesn't make any damn sense. These people want to make cigarette smoking illegal and marijuana legal, which is kind of interesting because here in the state of Oregon, in our patient clubs and our cannabis clubs out here, you can't smoke cigarettes inside, but you can smoke weed inside. So maybe Nixon was a little prophetic on that case. All right, continuing the conversation with Raymond Schaefer that took place in September of 1971, there was a problem that Schaefer wanted to bring up because Nixon had been going out in public and saying, you know, no matter what this commission says, I'm firmly against legalization. No matter what they say, I'm flat out against legalization. And so, of course, the people on Schaefer's commission were like, well, geez, what the hell are we doing then? You know, if he's not going to listen to what we say, well, if he's already got his mind made up, why should we bother? So this is Schaefer explaining to Nixon what a problem that particularly is.
Insofar as legalization, I think the thing that has caused us the greatest problem was your statement in San Clemente, which is a part of your strong conviction. You express them as you felt them, but you use the word legalization, and the way I answered it was, look, we're a national commission. We're going to take a look at the whole picture. We know that the president is interested in what we're doing, is concerned about the problem, and we've never had a chance to discuss what he means by legalization. If he means removing all controls, or if he's talking about simple possession, these are things that can be worked out at a later date.
We've never had a chance to discuss what he means by legalization. If he means removing all controls or allowing simple possession, these are things that can be worked out at a later date. I guess 40 years later is that later date. And as the conversation winds up with Governor Schaefer here and Richard Nixon, Schaefer points out that this isn't just about controlling the social problem of drugs, but controlling the public messaging on drugs.
We want to demythologize marijuana so that the kids aren't going out experimenting just because they think it's great stuff.
We want to demythologize marijuana so the kids aren't going out and experimenting with it because they think it's great stuff. Now, from that point, 1972, there was about 45% of 12th graders who had tried marijuana in their lifetimes. By 1979, it was up to 60%. So much for the demythologization of marijuana by the Schaefer Commission. And finally, Schaefer assures President Nixon that he won't have to face any sort of legalization talk in the Schaefer report.
I think the problems of drug abuse will be a political issue. And while our report isn't going to give you a platform, it's going to be the thing that will bring us the kind of victory we want, but it can be a source of possible embarrassment, and that's why I don't want to give any ammunition to those who would like to use it. So far, you're staying away from any possible legalization of marijuana. Absolutely. I would keep.
Yeah, so you're saying you're staying away from any possible endorsement of legalization of marijuana. Absolutely, absolutely. So Raymond Schaefer was already, avoiding the L word at all costs in this report. Closing off those scientists from even considering that at that time. Now, of course, the Schaefer Commission report came out, and after it came out, there was quite a bit of embarrassment in the Nixon administration. Before we get to that, though, I have one last conversation. March 21st, 1972. This is just before the official release of the Schaefer Commission report. A conversation in the Oval Office between the president and, again, Bob Haldeman. And Nixon is pretty upset about a pamphlet that he saw talking about the drug problem and saying that it must be dealt with in a variety of ways.
I saw, for example, a pastor on the pamphlet they're getting out on drugs and presentation that shows what you first started. This is something sense where it doesn't. But where they put it as the quote from the president on the front of the pamphlet, the picture, and a good strong picture, and the rest of it says that the problem of drugs is our number one problem. It must be dealt with in a variety of ways. Yeah. When I saw a variety of ways, I got in there puke. And I thought, maybe say, we need, I use the word all-out war, or all fronts, or despicable, or this, in a variety of ways, it just pissed off into the stream. You know, it's typical of what we get out of that shop over there. Even if you want to make that overall statement, you've got to say we've got to attack it in every direction. We've got to attack on all fronts, yeah. We've got to attack the problem of the addict, the problem of the pusher, the problem of the exposed, victim. Yeah, well, you can sure water it down, and then it's a variety of ways. Well, now, what in the hell does that killer tell us? Except that there are several ways. Well, what that really tells you is that we can't really handle it. That's a brush off. It's not like appointing a commission. But handling a variety of ways really says we don't know how to handle it. Which may be the truth. Oh, but it sure as hell isn't the thing to say. It's the truth. Well, it isn't the thing to say. There's ways to handle it. We just kick the hell out of it.
It's so telling to me at the very end of that, where handle it in a variety of ways. Haldeman says, handle it in a variety of ways really says we don't know how to handle it, which may be the truth, but it sure as hell isn't the thing to say. So acknowledging that they were pretty much clueless on this issue. Now, of course, later that week, the Schaefer Commission released their report, which recommended the decriminalization of marijuana. And, of course, Nixon threw that in the trash and continued with that war on drugs that we're still experiencing today. Now, just a couple days, just a few months later, actually, there was a press conference where Nixon was already declaring mission accomplished.
We've turned the corner on drug addiction in the United States.
That's all it took.
Drug addiction in the United States is under control.
Under control. Drug addiction's under control. We've turned the corner. They're in the last throes of the insurgency, I guess. Yeah, that's what we're dealing with here in the war on drugs. So there you go. There is your history of Nixon's war on drugs as brought to you from the Nixon tapes. You can find those at nixontapes.org. Really amazing archive there with Excel spreadsheets that tell you where all the time cues are and Word documents to tell you who was having the conversations and at what time. Of course, the audio quality is not great. These were old cassette tapes from back in the day, so, not the greatest audio quality, but some amazing stuff there on the Nixon tapes. We'll bring you more on the 40th anniversary of the war on drugs in our Hour 2 here on Toker Talk Radio, and we'll take your calls at 971-533-7111, particularly interested in talking to folks who lived through those Nixon years, if they've got anything to say about old Tricky Dick and his war on drugs. I also like that photo, in doing all my research, I found that photo of Nixon with Elvis. Yeah, that's a great one, where he appointed Elvis Presley a special agent of the DEA. That was a very interesting one. And I got one more bonus quote for you as we go out here. This is Nixon
that was what you were
talking to his agriculture department about creating an insect that would kill opium poppies.
Destroy insects, and this has to be done with the greatest of care, because you introduce a new one and you may have a new pest. Right, but insect to destroy insects. But now what we're talking about is insect to destroy, in other words, not a chemical, but an insect, you see, that could destroy, that could work on poppies. Or a virus or something.
That's it. So he's talking about engineering insects to destroy poppies, and of course we saw later in the 70s paraquat on marijuana fields and all sorts of terrible things that continue to this day. The spraying of cocaine fields, coca fields in Colombia, the fumigation that hurts the peasant farmers that are there, poisons their land. This is never going to stop. It's time to come up with something other than a war on drugs. We'll talk about more of it in Hour 2 for all of us here at Normal Show Live. Thanks for joining us today and all this week. For Kaliko the Intern, Ganja John, and Cannabis Carrie, I'm Radical Russ. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is Normal Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
Take it on one more time. You take a seat, you plant it, you're going to die.